welcome back to some professional StarCraft 2, a premier tournament, ASUS ROG 2019 in Finland. The hometown, the home field of Serral, who happens, well, not so happens, but happens to be in the bottom right of this semi-finals match. Team Ensa's own home field advantage. Let's see how much it works out for him. But in one of the few scenarios where this actually happens before BlizzCon, we have one of the best Korean players in the world. And actually, this is a rematch of the BlizzCon finals. The Shield of Ire. It is Stats from Team Splice and from South Korea. I think still, throughout 2019 and in 2018, the most solid Protoss player. By solid, just very comfortable with a wide variety of builds. Not afraid to go to the late game, but can defend in the early game as well. He's called the Shield of Ire for a reason. He defines what it is to be a defensive, adaptable Protoss. This series comes highly recommended. I wasn't able to watch it live during the tournament, but now I'm able to watch it live with you. So thank you for being here. In the BlizzCon finals, I harken back, what a fun word, harken back to that day where Serral defeated, spoilers by the way, Serral defeated Stats 4-2. And honestly, even the games that Stats won kind of felt more like Serral not quite getting what he wanted to get done, as opposed to Stats having some breakthrough in strategy or execution. Well, we will see. Does he have another style he wants to bring out here? Is this possibly a foreshadowing of another BlizzCon finals? Protoss versus Zerg has gone through a lot of changes, both meta and balance-wise, throughout the year, and will continue to do so with more upcoming balance updates. Already Stats has blocked the hatchery. But I'm interested to see, is there a new style? Because what happens is Stats kind of, Stats, Neeb, to an extent, players like Zest and Trap, but mostly Stats and Neeb, I would say, are the shield Protosses that everybody looks to. Whatever build they end up using is a build, if you're at a higher level, you're going to see on the ladder. You're going to see Protoss versus Zerg is a matchup that it's not really figured out, but it follows a pretty set path. Past a certain point. Like, if you're going Twilight, oftentimes it's going to be an Archon drop. If you're going Stargate, probably still an Archon drop. Like, a lot of the time, that is the default. If you open up Robo, then maybe some Immortal Sentry action. But wait a second. Stats. That's not a wall. So Stats is... So about that whole shield thing, well, is he just dead? Oh, cool, like, moving on. If this is just 3 Zergling rushes that get in because he doesn't have a wall, what? That was a warm-up game. Everybody knows the first game of the series doesn't count. I mean, more realistically and practically, yeah, of course it does count. What are you saying? But it, of course, doesn't count. Let's not be silly here. Stats knows that. So I have no idea what That was Serral doing the game time special, which is just make a bunch of Zerglings and hope for the best. Hope they screw up the wall, and Stats just kind of didn't have a wall. Like, I'm tilted by that game. Imagine how Stats feels. Well, honestly, that's one of those games you're like, well, he made a bunch of Zerglings and I didn't have a wall. What are you gonna do? I mean, build a wall next time, but if your Stats, maybe you can shake it off a lot easier than, well, Stats himself was not spending 3 minutes hyping out how solid and defensive Stats was. Okay, Stats was busy playing the game, not building a wall. It might tilt me more when I do that. But believe me, guys, for realsies, though. So, what was I saying? Outside of BlizzCon, there are very few events where non-Korean and Korean players that aren't in GSL play one another. There's GSL versus the world, and then there's a tournament like ASUS here, also known as Assembly Summer in Finland. But so the way the WCS system works is there's a pretty hard region lock where there's the WCS circuit, and then there's WCS Korea, which is essentially GSL and non-GSL events. There are a handful of carryover events like this one, and then there's GSL versus the world, which is coming up. They don't offer as many WCS points or BlizzCon seeds, but they do offer quite a prize pool. And you'll sometimes, or WESG was another one, and IEM. Actually, now that I think about it, there are a pretty significant amount of tournaments. It's just you don't see all the Korean players. You see a handful of the top ones like Stats and Innovation. I'm listing them off. I'm like, wait a sec. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. I think it's 4 major tournaments this year, besides BlizzCon. They don't have the build-up of like a whole league and multiple weeks of qualifying and all that. We've got a Twilight. What? This is what? Ah! Ah! That's not your base, Serral. What are you doing here? Who let you in here? At the same time, an Adept, he's not going to complete the shade. I think he caught a glimpse of the Zerglings. It's a DT Archon drop. Now, some players will try to get damage done with the DTs. Some players will just go straight in the Archons. Into the Archons. Like, if this was parting, I'd say 100%. Then, sometimes, like, parting overdoes it. Parting will be like, wow, who needs Archons when you could just have 4 DTs and a Warp Prism? I think Stats will probably go for the Archons first. The Archon's a much more known quantity. Like, you can't really control whether or not their detection is done in time. But Archons themselves are already very strong, and any delay on getting them out is less potential damage done. Like, if Serral just has an Overseer and enough Roaches, and you go in with the DTs early, that's just kind of a waste of time. So we'll see if he goes for the gamble or not. Serral, who needs Overlords when you have Zerglings? His vision, essentially like map hacking. And he's going to spot this. I like Stats going with 2 Adepts in the Prism. I like that move. This actually masks it pretty well. Though, not to Serral, maybe to me. Oh, look at... Micro Jackson over here. Gonna warp in 4 DTs behind. The 2 Adepts, the dual purpose of denying scouting, and giving him information as to whether he needs to build Archons early. So Stats, already a step ahead. A lot of players just send the Prism out with nothing in it. Stats brings 2 Adepts that allows him to know whether or not he needs to build Archons. He saw there was an Overseer, he saw there weren't that many units, so immediately into Archons right off the bat. So I talked about whether it's a gamble or not. Stats decided he wasn't going to play. He wasn't even going to play the game. He's not going to gamble at all. Why bother when you could just get the information you need? And yes, I'm going to be hyping Stats up. Stats is probably my favorite Protoss player to watch. I mean, outside of Puck. But unfortunately, Puck not as accomplished in Premier tournaments, so We have to get by with just stats, or Neeb, or several others. But the Warp Prism continuing to do damage. Observer, allowing the denial of these creep tumors, and the Archons. So Archons do extra damage to biological, which is pretty good against Zerg, because literally everything, including buildings, is biological. Seems like a bit of a design flaw. Spire is on the way. And we will see from here. Oh, a drop into the main. More of a scouting drop, it looks like, than anything else. It's going to bait a warp in of 4 Zealots. Is there even a Twilight Counts? Okay. Okay, I don't want to talk about it. Yes, of course there's a Twilight Council. What I meant was charge, and he hadn't started it yet. But now the charge will begin. Was the Spire scouted? Where is the Spire? I can't even find it, and I'm observing. Ooh, oh my god. That queen was gushing blood after being slaughtered by the energy beams. Very sad story. But the Spire, of course, Stats is gonna scout it. What a god. I'm not biased at all. Okay, I've had... Like, Serral's won enough. Serral beat Stats in BlizzCon, alright? Let's not worry so much. 4 more gates on the way. The Spire was scouted. It looks like Serral's just gonna 7 mutas and cut him off. Some players will just continue to lean on him. Stats is taking this very serious. He's got double star on the way. And the Archon Prism drop. So far, only a handful of probes going down. But it's not like Stats has a huge amount of economy here. The fact he's forced to play defensive while Serral's taking an infestation pit. He's getting more bases. The Archon drop to start did good, but not great. Which means there's not that much map control for Stats at all. Really, with these mutas out, there is no map control. And if he overcommits to Phoenixes, the fact... Serral's done. He's done making mutas. This is just creating space, as is a caster meme, but it really is. Look at how much time and how much effort Stats has put in to dealing with these Mutalisks. Hive is on the way. Baneling speed, +1 melee, +1 ranged. Let me point out that only 1 upgrade so far. That's pretty weak. Oh, no, the Prism! The Prism goes down, but the Archons will not. He's going to want to replace that as soon as possible. Oh, Serral turns on the Phoenixes. Doesn't quite pick off one. Phoenix is quite a hard counter when microed. There is no Hydralisk done, but he's not going to need... Like, a handful of Phoenixes is not really the call. Or really a concern, rather. Storm is on the way. I think at this point, Stats has realized that Serral is no longer invested in the Spire. Though, having the Stargates doesn't hurt. Because if you have the Stargates, you already have options against Broodlords, and Broodlords are oftentimes the late-game tech. Can we all appreciate how this game didn't end with 20 Zerglings in the base and Stats just dying? I just want to point that out. Thank you, Stats. Alright. Adrenal glands on the way. Greater Spire. So, melee attack upgrades also affect Broodlings, but the Broodling Strike, which is most of the damage from Broodlords, is air attack upgrades. Something to point out, but melee attack pretty good for Zerglings and Banelings, obviously. +2 melee attack, 1-shots probes without armor upgrades, and 2-shots Templar without them, as well as doing a lot of extra damage to charge lots. It makes it more like the Legacy of the Void trailer, where charge lots die in apparently just 3 Banes. It's pretty close to that once you get solid upgrades. Greater Spire's on the way. 10 Banelings, +2 ranged attack. So far, while Stats has acquitted himself well, since the Prism drop was shut down and the mutas came out, it's been all Serral all over the map. He's going to shut these things down. Down goes a Dropper Lord. There is no Overlord speed yet. The Brood Lords are going to be the flying elephant in the room, though. There is no Fleet Beacon. There are no air upgrades for Phoenixes or anything like that. Phoenixes can be a soft counter. There is no Blink. Stats is right now looking to get near 200 supply. Fleet Beacon's on the way. Get near 200 supply and then move out. but he's going to be unhappy to see the Broodlords are already in the mail for Serral. Both hallucinated and not so hallucinated Phoenixes scouting around, not going to find anything. Well, I think he's about to see the Broods. If not the Greater Spire. You already know what? Stay, what? Not the best usage of Phoenixes, just kind of losing them. The army is on its way across, but I think he got wind of the Greater Spire, and he has to back off. It's really tough at this point because he doesn't already have the potential counter. He has to buy time. Serral's already got the Broods done. He's playing very patient. He's got 80 drones. He's got +3 ranged attack on the way. 3 Tempests coming out. Stats, one of the players who, like, a lot of players will try to do the square peg in a very small round hole situation where they just try to take their Immortals and Archons and say, well, those Broodlords aren't that scary. Let's see if I can get some damage done. But inevitably, and almost every time, you can't get the damage done. So just going into Tempest, which are, they do extra damage to massive units, especially, well, is it only air? I actually don't know this. It's been changed back and forth a few times, but massive air especially, like battle cruisers, Broodlords, your mother, carriers, things like that, take extra damage from the Tempest. And now a second Cybercore, so Stats is very ready to go up to this late game army composition. Oh, Banelings? Storm? Wow, beautiful spell casting so far. Stats, I mean, he's at 200 supply. He's building up a bank. I was saying Serral now has the Broodlords. He's going to go kill him, but guess what? That time has passed. There should be a few Oracles, and with a few Oracles, you can get Revelation to tag this. The Tempest, I believe, don't quote me on my math, but 4 Tempests, 1 shot a Broodlord once they have +1 air weapons. We'll see if I get to test out that theory. I think it's somewhere around there. 5 definitely does, but 4 may. That may be Vikings that it does. I'm not here for math. I'm here to cast. Very different thing. But Infestors are on the way. Serral, not as much of a bank as you'd think, especially with the economy and number of bases he's had, but he has been losing units that here and there, and he's been building up constantly, kind of trading supply into Infestor Broodlord without losing enough that Stats has a window to attack. +2 air attack is on the way. How many Stargates now? We got 4 Stargates. Watchtowers being cleaned up by Serral. Like, what is that a disruptor? It's a dangerous game. Neural Parasite's on the way for Serral. How is Stats? Oh, Mothership. That's what he was waiting on. I was wondering. DT Blink is on the way. Something that everybody thought was going to be a whole deal, but they've buffed it multiple times and people still barely use it. It's one of the most effective ways to throw away thousands of gas and minerals in a very quick time. Roaches and Ravagers. He wants to get as much damage done as possible, but also get rid of Roaches and Ravagers because they no longer have much value. Yeah, losing these is not a huge concern for Serral. He's immediately going to replace them with a better unit composition, which is Infestors, which is Hydras. Roaches and Ravagers just do not justify their supply costs. They're a mid-game unit, and this is a late-game game. The best place. How many Tempests, though? There are 15 Infestors, 7 Tempests, 8 Broodlords, no Corruptors. Is an interesting choice here. He's really going to be relying on the ground-to-air anti-air capabilities. Some Corruptors coming through now. I'd say that's a little light on the Broodlord count, but Serral, I'm not going to question Serral, okay? Like, but I will a little bit, but not much. The Mothership means that Overseers are a very important part. It makes it a little harder to get Neural Parasite off, for Fungals to be reliable. The Mothership just makes everything more difficult. And also that army no longer really vulnerable unless there's a committed effort to Immortals. This is the Stats doing the same thing Serral was doing. He's like, well, I don't really need Immortals, but I don't want to just walk them across the map. Might as well try to do something. They won't do much. Shield upgrades coming through. A wall of spine crawlers at these outlying bases. We've this has been mostly a Cold War here for a while. has both sides sending in their extraneous expendable units, but not committing their main armies. Stats actually with a much bigger bank. The thing is, it's much harder for Stats to take a game-winning fight and then replace his units. Like, he can chip away at Serral, but if Serral gets a good fight, Stats cannot rebuild that army in time. So he has to be very careful. A mothership takes like 4 years to build. That's why he waited so long to do anything. Serral, on the other hand, can rebuild his army more quickly. If he loses his Broodlords and Infestors, that hurts. But it's not as much of a game-ending blow as losing, like, your Tempest and Mothership. Carriers are on the way. A rich man's unit, but Stats. And I'm not just talking about his prize money as a rich man. He's got plenty of bases, plenty of workers, banking up. In a later game scenario, like, carriers are a late game, but not necessarily an end game unit, because each of those interceptors cost money. And when you lose too many, you're kind of just bleeding through your minerals. But there's still plenty of minerals on the map. If it comes down to that, disruptors are in the mix. Neural Parasite, very dangerous, but feedback could give him some negative commentary. There are plenty of those infestors. Now, feedback only does 0.5 damage. It used to do 1 damage. You just pop, 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 pop. Infestors popping left and right. But a full energy infestor has only 90 HP. Wait, I'm right on that, right? Yes, 90 HP on an infestor. And there's 200 energy. So a full HP infestor will get popped by a single feedback. Oh, but here come the fungals at the start. Disruptor! Not gonna find anything. Broodlord's looking for an opportunity. The tags are good. A fungal on the Tempest, and he takes him away! That's what. Oh, but the Disruptor counter! What a counter play, but it's not over yet. He needs to throw out some more Disruptor shots. That's one way to counter Neural Parasite. I've never seen this as such an effective counter, but guess what? It doesn't matter. He can just send some more out. A lot of infestors have been lost. The Disruptor counter to Neural Parasite, though, it outranges. The Neural has a very long range, but Disruptor has a longer effective range. It's less likely to be knurled. This is a very thin line to walk, but Stats, that is the big danger, is he turns your capital ships against you, your carriers, your Tempest, even your mothership. But the Disruptor can actually, oh, he grabs an Oracle. That Oracle will never see home again. Stats with the big brain, micro-intensive plays, but both sides building up almost a campaign mission of static defense on the map. 28 spores, 13 spines, 19 cannons, 14 shield batteries scattered throughout the bases. Stats, so far the units lost actually in favor of Stats, the gas as well, but we haven't really gotten into the brawl phase. They still, we had an exchange there, some heated words, but nothing that neither side can bounce back from. We still haven't seen a decisive battle where, for example, the mothership gets taken out, or the majority of the infestors. Storms have to be used over here. There's actually 200 supplies, so he can't warp in that many zealots, which is a real issue right now. Oh, Stats is bringing his whole army up north, and he's warping in a huge army down to the southwest. So probes are down. At this point, neither side, I think, really wants 70 workers. 60 is more where you're looking to be, with one solidly, maybe two solidly mining bases, but that's it. Because you can't run the whole army. Like, Serral's keeping his baseline army in the center of the map. It's real risky for Stats to just go back and forth like this. Wow, that's a lot of spine crawlers. The spine crawler's costing about as much as a zealot. It depends on whether you want to factor in the drone or not. +3 air armor. Does he already have +3 air weapons? We're going to max out the upgrades. +3 air attack is done for both sides. +2 air armor is coming up for Serral and already done for Stats. With the shield upgrade as well for all of his units and his cannons, something to point out. Where are those sentries going? Where are you going, sentries? Are those scouting sentries? Sentries still a very important part of the army. I have no idea what the sentries are doing. Like, Guardian Shield is going to be huge. Is he freeing up supply for more disruptors? I doubt that. Disruptors. Still a big part. The exploratory disruptor shot. If he gets a fungal on the... if he gets a neural parasite on a disruptor, he could just turn the entire fight. He could kill the disruptors with a What am I watching? The tickle beam's not incredibly effective against Spore. I have no idea. I don't think that was on purpose. You don't really want to be trading out sentries. What? Well, there goes another one. Double prism on the way. Disruptor finds 2 infestors. The dance continues. The no man's land where both spellcasters can be. Both sides have spellcasters that are very dangerous. Serral is mining from more bases, but Stats has been more cost effective with a better bank. Now, losing things like sentries and archons is gonna hurt. It's weird, because we're at the stage where both sides have kind of like, oh, Neural Parasite doing a good job, but at the same time, a great hit, knocking down some infestors. So both players getting a lot of damage done with those spellcasters. Yeah, the archons will be grabbed and killed. Whoop. Unless he gets an infestor for his trouble. Oh my god. Another disruptor shot. This is a great counter. But the Broodlords counter disruptors, whereas the disruptors counter infestors, but the infestors counter the counter to the Broodlords. So the triangle of death, which is by no means clear cut. Simple geometry. By the way, I'm convinced Tempests have the loudest attack in the game. They're just so loud. Like, they need to chill out. Put a silencer on the Tempest or something. I'll be a real buff. Serral adding on some more spores at the front. Tags them with the Oracle. 2 disruptor shots. Gonna discourage these spore crawlers. And now we're we're getting to the point where small armies might be more valuable again. As the map starts to get closer to mining out, that's when things like Zerglings and Zealots start to find more value. Because the armies are so large and strong, but have to be so close together. Will he shoot a disruptor to detect the burrowed Zergling? I'm not sure. I think he got it. Oh my god, he did. Oh, feedback. As we're getting towards the 23-minute mark here. Changelings taken out. Oh, that's a lot of infestors. In fact, it looks like Serral. Oh, beautiful tag from Stats. Wait, those disruptors zoning out. The tag didn't hit the Broodlords, though. Important to note. He's taking them out pretty easy. Oh, a nice disruptor hit. A dance. It continues. Yeah, Zerglings and Hydras. Serral still has like 20 or 30 supply invested in these lower tech units. Without the pylon, there's no warping to save this. Just the whole army will instead. No cancel. But are we really going to care about that with 6,000 minerals in the bank? If he loses by 100 minerals, well then, there you go. Blink is now on the way. Yeah, Serral still has some mutas. Obviously not using Select All Army Hockey. Serral's evened up the gas bank. He has 1, maybe 2 more mining bases now. Another tag. So many spellcasters for both sides. Well, wow. He found the one location with mutas. Down goes 1 prism, but there's not that. At this point, it's almost we're running out of value in actually attacking. Like, if you can kill tech, but is it worth thousands of minerals to kill it? It's getting down to the point where both sides will get a finite number of bases, and whoever spends their money more effectively... Oh, triple disruptor. Also effective against buildings. Still a strong army at the north. He's looking for a neural parasite on that mama ship. There's just so many infestors here. Oh, a neural parasite on disruptors? I'm not sure what happened with that disruptor. I don't think it hit any infestors. He's got to back up. He just goes for the infested Terrans. So zoned out by Serral. This base is essentially mined out. So the only value here is in holding this position so Serral can't cut you off. But there's no reason to lose your army over it. More disruptors zoning out. The mothership providing some cover, but there is an overseer, I guess it's called oversight mode. The infested Terrans continuing to zone out. The oracles are most of the detection here. I assume burrow is done, and indeed it is. He's just keeping them unburrowed for the fungals. The infested Terrans trickling out. They seem to have unlimited energy. Those units are free. Carrier interceptors are not. Disruptor shots are just on a cooldown as well. 15 probes go down, but that does give a little bit of an opportunity for stats to build a bigger army. I don't think you need any more probes at this point. Both sides are down to 56 on the dot, worker-wise. Oh, here are the infestors. He neural parasites and feedback! The Templar and Archons turn on one another. Serral channeling his inner Protoss to smash that small army to the north. Showing how valuable they can be. Banelings being used. If he can shut down this base, we're in a real scenario where Stats is going to be mining out. Like, without this base, Stats doesn't have a good mining base. That one towards the top right is okay. Wow, Serral has this base as well. Oh, where are the disruptors? How many disruptors in the army? 5 of them. Okay, the mothership's still looking for an opportunity. A good tag on the Broodlords. How many Broodlords in this endgame composition? 6. Banelings roll in, but Zealots, I love that spread on the Zealot Warpin. This Zealot, you can't even tell apart. It's a changeling. Oh, what? How? How did you even tell? The cannons are being set up. He's already pre-defending against the Banelings. The biggest brain. Okay, 4 more carriers on the way. Stats, his bank starting to dwindle. You can see, like, the infestors showing their value. Especially when they get a hold of Templar. They turn everything around. 12 more Banelings on the way. If he can kill the Templar and or the Disruptors, like, the ground army is required to deal with the air. For both sides, really. But especially for Stats. If Stats loses his ground, it's over. That's how it ends. The infestors have free reign. Thousands of infested Terrans. Neural parasite on everything. He needs the Disruptors. He needs the Templar. Another base under assault. Hopefully he's careful with his charge lots here. These little skirmishes. There you go. Eating a lot of those Bane hits. Oh! 5, 6 infestors going down. 27 infestors. That was a great disruptor hit. That's going to help turn things around. Oh my god. Well. That was a pretty good Baneling hit. He microed that one Baneling. Who needs disruptors when you have upgraded Banelings? 22 probes in a single hit. Not that Stats needs probes badly, but it doesn't help. Yeah, especially against the infested Terrans, the mothership with Cloak is very helpful. Another nice tag there, but Zerglings are coming in. The Corruptors, is everything fully upgraded? Yeah, 3-3-3, 3-3. Lots of 3s here. A counterattack towards the natural. Stats has to be careful. He's kind of sticking his neck out here. Some Immortals are worked back in. Oh, a huge round of infested Terrans. Will we see Disruptor hits? Yeah. Like, I'm kind of surprised Serral just used all that. I don't know how many Disruptors are underneath. Does he get a Neural? On the mothership, he turns it all around! The Neural Parasites. Oh, he doesn't get the Infestor with the mothership! He can't see Serral's army! He has the counter cloak. Disruptor shots on all sides. The mothership is turned back. Infested Terrans again. Another grab on the mothership. Will he be able to target down that Infestor? The Disruptors are all on cooldown. Stats is holding his ground, but the Interceptor count is dwindling. Another round of Disruptor shots. Every single infested Terran being used. Stats is backed into a corner. The charge lots are coming in from the side, making this kind of an awkward scenario. There's only 2 Broodlords left. Disruptors knocking into the infested Terran. The last little bit of energy on those infestors is used to take out the charge lots. But the ground army now finding some real value. Oh my god, you thought he was out of energy. Think again. So many infested Terrans with those 3/3 upgrades. The charge lot's not able to do enough. 8 more Broodlords are on the way. Stats has been whittled down, but Serral lost a lot in that exchange. He's 3,000 more gas lost for Serral. So despite all this, yeah, Void Rays are on the way. That's a bit of a sign of desperation here for Stats. His bank, he has a better gas bank, but his minerals are struggling, and that's part of the side effect of 1, just not having as many bases, and 2, going carriers. No Vipers for Serral throughout this game, something to point out. Oh, be careful, be careful! Does he even have energy for any Knurls? I don't think so. Catches 1 Infester. But there's really not that much anti-air. Void Rays being added. Serral's base, he can't be allowed to take that top center base. He just simply cannot. Because taking that base means that Serral will have a significant overall mining advantage. Stats cannot allow that base to be taken. That will give him an overwhelming economy. Oh, here come the brutes. The ground army needs to figure out what it's doing with its life. Here come the disruptors. The Broodlords are exposed. The Void Rays charge up. Another round of disruptor shots. The Fungal's doing a good job thus far. Are there any more disruptors? There are, but great pullbacks from Serral. And suddenly, Stats' army begins to dwindle. It's grabbed, and it's knocked down from the sky. And suddenly Stats doesn't have what he needs to hold on to his only true mining base. Another mothership to save the day, potentially. But now Stats, he's still zoned out by infested Terrans. Disruptors are in production. The Nexus falls. And with it, hope. And also income. Both important and very related. The last stand. Stats has a lot of his probes back here as well. Storms across the board. The mothership using whatever it can. Spore crawlers are in the mix. They're actually killing things. Zerglings filing in, swarming everything on the ground. There's not enough storms. There's not enough splash damage. There's not enough units. And Serral, in a much more drawn-out game, takes a 2-0 lead. Overwhelming force. He wasn't as cost-effective, but he didn't let it get to the point where that matters. Like, if we actually mine out the map, obviously being less cost-effective is relevant. But if we don't, then you can lean on that economy. The next map is Turbo Cruise. Stats is down 2-0. I don't think he's the kind of guy who gets serious nerves, though. Like, he's not the kind of guy who's like, oh, now I gotta panic and do a cannon rush, which I never do. Well, actually Stats is cannon rush before, but because they let him use a barcode for some reason is why we have the beautiful picture of Stats, by the way. Instead, but since this is match point and I've learned how to make the dirty esports money over the years, you don't wait till the end because people have already turned off the video or the stream. You do it on match point. It's like, if you enjoyed the cast, smash that like button like infestors seem to smash everything eventually. Do you think infestors should be as strong as they are? Well, actually watch the new balance patch video and how they're changing them, because they're getting nerfed, assuming that Blizzard ever sends the next patch through. We're talking about slow zones on Turbo Cruise. You know all about the slow zones. But thank you for watching. I hope you enjoy. If you spent the last 30 minutes watching that game, you can spend 3 seconds clicking buttons that don't do anything except for the algorithm. But so the summary is, so this is well, we'll see what the response is to this. But apparently infested Terrans ignore armor upgrades right now. They were gonna nerf the damage of infested Terrans, but instead they're patch balance fix is for them to not ignore armor upgrades, which actually means when you have 3/3 with +3 shields, infested Terrans are going to be doing significantly less DPS. Right now, the fact they go through armor, they were going to nerf their damage by 2, but with +3, that's 3 less damage against armor, and then if you have +3 shields as well. So, fun fact. Now you might be like, I didn't notice. I wasn't doing the math on each infested Terran hitting. Well, yeah. I mean, who was? Also, let's be honest. You weren't using infestors, or if you were A-moving them into your opponent's army and losing them and saying, like, how are you even supposed to beat carriers? Well... A Stargate. Oh, things are getting serious here. So, a Stargate is kind of the I don't want to die to anything strat. The last 2 games, why does he keep letting Serral get a Zergling in? I mean, it's not the end of the world, and seeing a Stargate is not going to be huge. Is Serral actually going to kill a probe? Oh, the micro. Right. Oh, he didn't see the Stargate. Wait, did he? Moving on. So Phoenix is already done. And well, 2 more guesses on the way. They were before the Overlord went down. We do have an Oracle coming out. So there's the meta on Oracles is interesting. Cause the difference between 1, 2, 3, or more oracles is huge. 1 oracle is essentially like, well, I should probably build something to keep my units alive and maybe get a little bit of scouting. 2 oracles is like, I still want to transition into other tech, but maybe I can get some damage done. Or even better, get scouting while also having an oracle defensively. That was optimistic. 3 oracles is, now your strategy is dependent on the oracles. Like, you have to respond. 3 oracles can kill queens, they're going to kill a lot of drones, constant revelations, but each oracle costs as much gas as the Stargate did, so it slows down any other build. Adepts are shading through. That's very good at the minimalist adept micro. Finds 3 kills. Will he also find an opportunity? Well, the queens are out of position. Wow. Wait, what did he lose? He lost an oracle there. Bit sloppy. But Serral's only at 37 drones. He's actually lost enough. There are 11 roaches on the way. Serral, oh, Brenda! We're going! We've had enough! There are far too many! Oracles are far too annoying. There's no way the queens aren't coming with this. This isn't all in. But the thing is, Stats doesn't have a 3rd. He's already just ran all his drones away. Well, guess what? The oracles are going to do a lot of damage. That's not going to help him kill units that are at his base. I feel like he's going to recall. Oh my god. The oracles did so much damage. He's going to try to hold the line. The shield is being raised. 3 shield batteries. An Immortal is done. Twilight and Forge on the way. I have a feeling we're not going to see anything from those. Stats has a huge economy advantage. It doesn't matter that Serral has 3 bases with this much of a worker difference. That 1 pylon powers 2 different gates, but the gates aren't... Okay, Stats, like, why don't you just... He doesn't even come back. Queens are here. This is our 1 shot! Serral has a huge army supply. But the queens are the only counter to oracles here. 2 immortals now. Force fields, while they can be broken by Ravagers, are not going to be the end of the world. Is he even going to bother breaking them? It doesn't look like for now. Now the Corrosive Bile, can he get both with one? Nicely done. Very minimalist Corrosive Biles, but are there enough Zerglings to buffer the damage? The shield batteries are out of energy, but the Immortals are still intact. The Oracles are on the other side of the map. The Zergling count is beginning to thin out. The Corrosive Bile's raining home, but still 3 Immortals holding the line. The last few force fields helping to zone out the Queens. Zerglings continue to trickle through, but he needed a flood. Stats, holds. I'm kind of surprised that Serral committed so much. Now, this is not a map that, as Serral, you want to... I'm reasonably sure this was Stats' map pick, but honestly, I don't know in PvZ. No one really likes playing Turbo Cruise in my experience. Nobody really likes the slow zones, but Force Field and slow zones are not a fun combination. We actually missed the opportunity to see Queens in slow zones, but I feel like Serral got a little tilted with those first 2 adepts, and he just pulled the trigger on the all-in. It felt forced. It felt like that was not the plan from the start. It felt like that was a reaction, and you don't really want to play reactionary against a player who, again, 1 against stats, and 2 when stats open Stargate, because Stargate gives you near-perfect information just by its nature, where you don't have much anti-air early as a Zerg, and it gives you plenty of time to counter your opponent. But can you blame Serral? He's up 2-0. It's a best of 5. He's on match point. Like, why not just go for it, right? Like, throw it in, see what happens. You still got plenty of games. So. Yes, in the top left is Serral, the world champion in his hometown of Finland, which is all one big town, if you count the trolls. And then stats, a long way from home. But you see there, like, I've kind of been wondering. I feel like you need to do enough Immortal, you need to do enough, like, Robo or Archon drop openers to keep Zergs honest. But Stargate is still the bread and butter. Alright, it's still the safest way to open up. The only things that it's vulnerable to are, 1, if you're not on top of your Stargate units and really being active with them, and 2, really early all-ins where you have minimal units. But there are ways to easily kind of shore up those weaknesses. Like, just very good adept scouting, maybe some additional probe scouting. So, I feel, despite all the changes in maps and meta and actual balance changes, the Stargate is still the staple. Still the thing players fall back on when they're like, oh, yeah, I need to take this serious. It looks like that's where Stats is going again, based on how much gas he has before his Cyber Core is finishing. The amount of probes you put into each gas geyser early on is relevant in this case. Yeah, another Stargate. And we're on King's Cove, which an early third is not nearly out of the question. It felt like Stats was... his build was responding to Serral, as opposed to, my plan is to do 3 Oracles into an all-in. I think if Serral had shown like a lair, or if he hadn't built the Roach Warren, or Roaches, Stats would be much more likely to be like, well, I'm taking my third. Still going Immortals. Immortals very good, but that is the big strength, especially for a player like Stats, is how much information you get. There's a Phoenix on the way first. Not even going to try to get damage done with an early Oracle. Going to get the known quantity of at least 1, maybe 2 Overlords early, depending on how many are sent across. In fact, Serral's sending... No, he has a second Overlord that's way off in the distance. Trying to avoid exactly this, probably. 1 Oracle. So now the things to watch out for are, one, from Serral, how many queens is he going to build? And does he add on any other tech? Besides, well, really besides lair. 2, when does Stats get his second guesses? At 3 minutes and 30 to 40 seconds. So this is a transition into tech. But what kind? What flavor? Is it going to be an Archon drop? Is it just straight into Robo again? Now, the Overlord did, I believe, scout it. But it could almost literally be anything. Just what it won't be, more than likely, is a very quick third. 2 queens spotted. I don't know if he saw the Spore Crawler. No Twilight Council yet, is something to point out. Without a Twilight Council yet, this means it's not an Archon drop rush. He's going to make a 3rd Oracle. Okay, so this is the build. If Stats ends up... This could definitely be a game where... Well, these 2 games. This game, though, I think, especially. Serral hasn't taken a ton of damage early. We'll see in a second. But what does Stats do? This is a build you can copy. I wouldn't recommend going heavy Oracle as a lower level player, but if you're like Diamond or Masters, this is obviously what Stats thinks is one of the safest styles to play. So, nice pickup there. Only a single queen. The Oracle is just going to go with the drones. He's going to keep both alive. 2 more gates. We're going to go up to 4. Oh, 6 gates. 7 if you include the star, but I wouldn't. I don't see an attack working out. Stats is at 45 probes. He's not building more this moment. This may just be defensive. I believe he's seen the Roach Horn. He saw the lair on the way. Yeah, this is just to keep his base in tech. Whoa, whoa, whoa! That's 2 Spore Crawlers. Somehow everything lives. Protoss. Stats managing that well. 2 Adepts coming in. The fact that there are this many drones should tell Stats all he needs to know. And all he needs to know is that Serral has no intentions of attacking. What is he building there? Wow, these Adepts are getting a lot more damage than they ever should have gotten done. Oh, the Oracle. God. This is really well done by Stats. I can't stress how difficult it is to manage all these units without slipping on anything at home. Like, he still has all his tech up. He's put together a solid gateway push. Looks like we're going to have double Stasis Ward harass simultaneously while moving across the map. Stasis Wards will be targeted down. Serral negates these well. But now the attack is coming up. He's got 11 roaches on the way. He spent a lot of money rebuilding drones, which means he may be vulnerable. Oh, and a Warp Prism! Where did that even come from? Oh my god. He just walks up. He starts force fielding. The Oracles have already given him plenty of information. There are 2 options. Either Serral remade too many drones and there's not that many units on the field, or 2, he made a bunch of units and therefore doesn't have that many drones, and Stats can just build workers behind. But all the drones die. The force fields are beautiful. The placement on the prism leaves it not vulnerable early on, at least. The corrosive bows force it a little bit away, but the damage has already been done. GG. Stats just knocks him down and knocks him out. Serral just got straight up outplayed there. And suddenly, it's down to just 1. Like, that made, like, Stats just, in these last 2 games, in the first 2 games it was different, but in these last 2 games, Stats has made Serral look like, it's like watching a Grandmaster versus a Diamond Leaguer almost. I hate to make that comparison, but it just feels like Serral, and you might ask, like, well, what should Serral do? That is a great question. I don't have the answer to that. Like, it seems that I mean, it's like, just don't take damage. The problem is there's a very different response to everything that Stats is doing. The Oracles require a strong anti-air, but Queens, not incredible against Adepts. Not incredible against Adepts, and leave you vulnerable to that early damage. And also not so great against all-out pushes. But if you invest in a lot of ground defense, then the Oracles start to do damage again. And if you really want to shut down the Adepts, well, that's not going to help you that... Like, having a bunch of Zerglings early leaves you kind of hamstrung economically for dealing with a follow-up Immortal Sentry push. It is... You can't overcommit to any response, but if you undercommit, you're dead, essentially. Or critically damaged. Now this depends on Stats having near perfect micro. Like if he loses an Oracle or two, or if the Adepts are a little late, or they're a little mispositioned. Make no mistake, it's not like, oh, Stats made the right units, now he wins. No. That's like saying, oh, I have the same titanium whites and phthalo blue that Bob Ross has, now let me paint the exact same painting. I mean... Maybe not a great comparison, but maybe a better would be like Michelangelo, even. But that is the beauty of StarCraft, right? Like, everybody gets handed the same tools, the same palette when the game starts. You, my Zerg friend, or you, my Protoss friend, have the same things that Stats and Serral do when they start their match. They haven't leveled up their character, or gotten better gear, or anything like that. They start on the same playing field you do. But that's where the similarities end. No offense. The Zergling gets in again. Serral's so good about this. Stats, it kind of seems like Stats is, the first two games, he's like, let's try something new. Well, the first game was just sad, but in the second game, going for, the Robo Opener, like the Archon drop. But now he's like, no, this is the build now. We're going to go 3 Oracles with a Robo, get plenty of gates to defend against all-ins and put on pressure, while also taking a third. Like, this is Stats' build. This is the shield and the sword, all rolled into one. He's doing the same build again. The Robo should be added on as soon as he gets 100 gas now. 2 Adepts coming out on the map in, it should be a moment from now. There's the Robo. Where are the 2 Adepts? Or does he wait till Warp Gate finishes? He might actually cut having any extra Warp Gate units early. Like, I should go back and be like, oh, here's how you do this build. This build should be in every Protoss' playbook who has more than 420 times 10 MMR against Zerg. At least attempting it, because if Stats does the same build 3 games in a row against the world champion, who beat him, by the way, that is something to take note of. But Serral, he's had 2 chances. He's had 2 shots at responding to it. He's missed. But here we go again. Same thing. More gates added on. Robo's done. Immortal's coming up next. 3 Oracles. 2 Adepts shading across. The Queens. There's not that much airspace to work with here. The target fire was pretty good. Oh, he picks up the Queen, though, allowing more opportunity, but... Oh, my God, are you kidding me? No, get it, Brenda! Brenda! Oh, and the Adepts are caught. They will find some... He still gets 7 drone kills. That Oracle's still alive, by the way, but... There's a Stasis Ward at the 3rd. No, Serral! No! Okay, fine, whatever. The Oracle's in the main. Wow, this is so greedy. Okay, yeah, that was really greedy. Like, what are you doing? Stats gets 11 kills, but he's lost an Oracle and both his Adepts for this. So this is probably the best that that Serral has done thus far. It's been a big commitment from Stats to get this damage done, but here comes the follow-up. The Warp Prism isn't done yet either. So this attack, I feel like this is more of a fake-out than it is a committed attack. Because without a Warp Prism, you're not going to get much damage done. Like, you simply aren't. Recall is the important tool here. This is keeping Serral honest without committing to an all-in. Oh, another Stasis. There's one in the main. It gets several drones. Stats is all over the place. Are there enough Ravagers? You gotta be careful. Force field. Oh, what a force field. Wait, oh, he's bringing the Queens. The Queens are on the march. But he is building drones behind. Yeah, actually, I take it back. The Queens are not marching. Knocking down these force fields. The Sentry is very valuable. Stats has to be careful. Like, Recall gives him a lot of opportunity. Oh my god, the Marine statue is a force field. This actually is going beautifully for Stats because of that Marine statue. There are no Terrans in the game, but the likeness of one kept enough of his Roaches and Ravagers boxed out that Stats could isolate small bite-sized bits of the army and kill them. Oh, another Stasis. He's incessant. There's one in the main. Serral does move. Oh, and the Queen as well. The Ling's in towards the third. Okay, Serral. Okay, so Serral has lived, by the way. This is important. Serral has lived. The build, he's adapted to the build. Stats didn't get nearly as much done early on. And now Serral has a comfortable worker count. He's building Swarm Hosts, which, if you can box out, like, a gateway-based army is lacking in splash damage. So if you haven't done economic damage, you're going to struggle to deal with a Swarm Host follow-up, because the Zerg can simply put enough on the field to make it so the Swarm Hosts are able to be aggressive. Oh my, everywhere we look, there's another Stasis Ward, making things difficult. And just because the Oracles have kind of, oh my god, and the Warp Prism, he's losing drones. A counterattack comes in, but the shield battery gonna keep things intact. The Adepts, I think it was just the Adepts, killed 6 more drones! The Contaminate on +1 attack, a great move there from Serral. He will lose the Overseer. When do we see the Tactical Goop nowadays, though? Oh my god, the Adepts. Like, oh, he just gets out with the Prism. I'm kind of surprised. Oh, because he wants it to micro-whack at home. There's not that many drones for Serral. He needs to get damage done with the Swarm Host. And Stats realizes the Swarm Hosts are a threat. The Locusts are going to box this out for now. There's a lot of Immortals at the back. The shield batteries going to be very helpful. Some Roaches are going to slip through, but the Immortals to counter them. Oh, he's juggling back. Serral can't find damage on any front here. He's going to throw some Corrosive Bows up, but without the Locust at the back, it's a little risky to engage. The Roaches in the main have just been absolutely smashed. Stats is rotating his shield, knocking out those Roaches literally off the map. Another Stasis, and in the main too! Oh my god! Oh, the double Stasis, so much. And he has to go back after the Stasis is out and get him back to mining like this is Brood War. The Locust gonna try to box out. Stats just seems to have too much on both sides. Storm is not done yet though, 6 seconds on the clock. The Locust will have already timed out by then. I don't know if that's better. But Serral is struggling. He's trying to knock on the door, but Stats is answering every time, saying, "Get off my lawn!" And now suddenly he feels confident enough with the Storms on top of the Roach Ravager. Some more Swarm Hosts going into the main. Maybe getting some damage done to the production, maybe the economy. Stats doesn't have a response to these locusts right off the bat. He's going to lose a handful of his probes. 6 probes is not the end of the world. Another group as well. Oh, a little bit disjointed in the center of the map, his stats. Immortals will be lost. The storm to counter. And suddenly, he tried to stretch his neck out a little bit, and that was painful. Will we get an Archon as well? Serral getting good damage done. He needed this. He killed probes. He whittled down immortals. He's eaten a lot of the storms, but he's still at 200 supply with a decent economy. And if those drones at least go back to work, hopefully they are by now. Because the army from stats is insanely strong for the supply it is. He's got 5 immortals. He's got a prism. He's got Archons and Templar. +2 attack is on the way. Serral is trying to trade out army for unit composition. He's at 200 supply, which means he wants to lose units, so that way stats loses key units as well. There's no other tech, though. +2 attack is on the way, more roaches. The idea is in the war of attrition, eventually Serral will win because he has the economy. He's got 4 bases. He can stay at 200 supply. Swarm hosts, as long as he keeps them intact, are sending out essentially free units, which are starting to pay for themselves. But stats, oh no, another stasis. Nice locust drop. Does he go straight for the Nexus? Oh, but the shield battery! I don't know if the shield battery made the difference, but it didn't hurt. Oh my god. Double stasis again. Serral's only at 60 drones. The closer stats gets to even army supply, the worse for Serral. The fact right now he's over 150 supply is really bad for Serral, because Roach Ravager just does not stack up. Even if you have all of the locusts with this, a wave of storms will wash them away. And even a fleet beacon sets, while he's been kind of driven out for a while, he's still not feeling that pressure. Whereas Serral has desperately been trying to get damage done. If you even looking at the supply does not does not tell the story. Swarm hosts, roaches, and ravagers are some of the least supply efficient units. Stats' army is actually worth more right now, despite being 50 less army supply. A mothership is on the way. That's a pretty good counter. The swarm hosts, they come off cooldown. A huge round of them. He may be able to take out the 4th, which is kind of required if he wants to continue. Corrosive Bile sent out. Storms. The force field actually zoning things out. Oh, a great locust drop. A swoop is the technical term. Just going straight for the pylons. Will he get the Nexus as well? Target firing down the Nexus, but the locusts, they weren't decisive enough. Another Nexus in the orange. He didn't decide what he wanted, so overall he gets very little. These carriers. There's a clock on Serral now. There is no counter to carriers. There's no Spire. Ravagers are not a carrier counter. If they come out, then Serral, I mean, he's going to have to build a Spire. The Roaches will be committed. He will kill the 4th. But at what cost? Oh, God. There are potentially infestors. I guess that is the call. Can he... Only one shield battery can affect the Nexus at once. He's going to need to use it. Is he going to use it in time? It doesn't matter. Oh my god. That's a lot of damage on those locusts. But there's still no counter for the carriers. Suddenly stats is down to 2 mining bases. He was once a rich man, but now he's building carriers as a poor man. He can easily rebuild those Nexi, and his army is strong. But Serral is grinding out. The fact he doesn't have a... Serral needs a Spire. I don't know why he doesn't have a Spire on the way yet. He's created a whole lot of space. Now is the time. If there were ever a time for a Spire, now is it. He doesn't know about the carriers, but even if you didn't know about the carriers, it is time for a Spire. Or a Hive, or both. He's just trying to put this pressure on. He's desperate to get damage done. Oh, the Banelings are rolling in, but the Storms... The Banelings do nothing. He even saves a... Oh, big... Oh, no. The wave of locusts! A single zealot gave its life for ire. So that way these locusts couldn't find any opportunity to get damage done. The Hive, the Spire, Burrow, Tunneling Claws, +2 melee attack. But are they too late? What is he gonna do about the carriers? Well, he's gonna see him now. Those roaches like, oh no, oh boy, oh golly gee, Serral. Probably should have built that spire. He builds another one. I don't know if he was building a oh, beautiful storms and another round. Everything evaporates. The interceptor's going to work. 68 Zerglings are on the way. Beautiful swoop. He kills killing Archons is incredibly important right now. Those spires are finishing. Still a lot of gas for Serral. Not that much mineral mining. He's got to be careful. What a game to what a game to see who goes to the finals here. Serral definitely adapted to dealing with Stats' Stargate into Robo style, but he's still been, it feels like he's still been racing against the clock this whole match. Stats has always been teching up, whereas Serral was desperately trying to find damage. And he has been. He's been killing bases. He's been killing units. But the carriers have arrived. And this is... oh, there's one way to counter the Locusts. They can't see anything, but they can die sooner than their short life expectancy. Baneling's on the way. That might be a little forward here. There are no Corruptors for Serral. He was actually maxed out. Swarm Host kind of working both ways there. Suddenly Stats has more supply. And he has a mothership. Wait, the Corruptors? There are 9 Corruptors, which is actually potentially just enough here. There are no Storms on the Corruptors. Now he's using a single Archon, adding so much damage! But can he get the other carrier? Guardian Shield helping out a lot. The Locust coming through. The Mothership isn't part of this. The Mothership has to retreat. What a weird scenario where Corrosive Bile is going to chase him or not. I don't know. More Corruptors on the way. The Locusts fly off into the sunset. There is still an Oracle back at home, but Stats has stabilized on 4 bases. Serral hasn't stabilized for most of this game. 2. Wait, oh, he's recalling to the Mothership! Remember, this exists! He brings the carriers from home! He called in the fleet! And guess what? 6 carriers, Immortals, Archons, Stats has put together the Golden Armada. He's got everything in support. He's at +2 attack, but the attack upgrade's not as important as the Templar. Charge Lot's gonna force Serral to split his army when even a full army gonna struggle to deal with this. He's put it all together. It was a struggle, but now Storms on the Corruptors. He hasn't even killed the Mothership yet. He's not even close to killing the Mothership yet. The Overseer helping out a bit, but Storms over everything. The Locust Wave is beaten back, and Stats wins 3-2, even though his build not as dominant in that match. That shows he knows exactly where to go with it. He knows the path. He shows the Protoss the way. Serral able to hold. He strikes back, but not strongly enough. Stats just marching. For every step he took back, he took 2 steps forward, where the opposite was true for Serral. You can tell Stats knows start to finish where that build goes. And Serral, like, I'm sure Serral knows the Spire should have been earlier. If you ask Serral right now, he knows everybody, like, when you kill those bases, that's when you build the Spire. Right there. As soon as those Nexi die, it's time for Spire. Because why do you think those Nexi died? If he was still building ground units, those Nexi would never have died. He's obviously going somewhere else. He's teching up. But, I mean, these are the top 2 players in the world last year. And potentially still the top 2. But it's really hard in the heat of the moment to know, like, okay, do I need to tech up, or can I actually maybe kill him? But that time, the answer is no. The Shield of Fire holds. After going down 2-0, bringing back 3 incredible... You see? I was feeling a little like I'm going to look super dumb at the start when Serral runs 20 Zerglings in and wins the game. When I said super solid Protoss play, but that is what I meant. And if you enjoyed, if you want to see more stats, make sure to leave a comment, a kappa in the chat, a stats boys. Smash that like button if you're watching this after the fact. If you're watching it live, say Winter, but I already watched this live, and now I just watched you cast it again. Am I going to watch it on YouTube? Of course you are. Why wouldn't you? You need some background noise in your life, okay? You can pretend like you're working or studying or doing whatever it is you do besides listening to lo-fi, chill, hip-hop beats. Why not lo-fi, chill, hip-hop builds with Winter and Stats and Serral? Thank you for watching. Congratulations to Stats. He moves on.